Hey guys, today I'm going to explain dot point 3.4 and 3.5 of the HSC Biology Syllabus. This is a part of maintaining a balance, and the dot point goes by explain why the processes of diffusion and osmosis are inadequate in removing dissolved nitrogenous wastes. Okay, so let's just get this straight. What is diffusion? So we can say that diffusion is the movement of water from a low concentration to a high concentration. And most importantly, diffusion involves APT. So it spends ATP. ATP is basically the currency of energy in our body, and diffusion needs ATP. So it spends ATP. Now, because of this, diffusion is quite inefficient. So it's stuff like this. If the body really needs to move, suppose somewhere with low concentration to a place with high concentration, which is against the concentration gradient, like it's going in the wrong way to a high concentration, it's going to need to use ATP. So it has to use ATP if it wants to do this. Now that's what diffusion is. Now let's just look at osmosis really quickly. Osmosis is basically the opposite of this. So osmosis is the movement from high concentration to low concentration. Now the reason being, this doesn't actually need any energy. This equals no ATP. This needs no ATP at all. So I'm just going to write that here. No ATP. It has no need for ATP. And now the main reason of this is because it's going across the concentration gradient. Suppose I had a very, very concentrated, area. Now, if it wanted to become less concentrated, the highly concentrated part of that area would slowly move through osmosis to the low concentrated area, which basically means that it turns from a high concentration, goes from the high concentration to the low concentration to provide something like an equal balance. So if this was all my stuff together, suppose that was all my stuff, and then I had just one here. This is high concentration, this is low concentration. What's actually going to happen is that these molecules are going to keep on moving apart, and then they're going to keep on moving until it comes a state where it is just equal. So if I had something which was equal, an isotonic thing, so it would just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Equal amounts everywhere. So that means that that's the main thing it's trying to achieve. It's trying to achieve an equal amount of concentration throughout. That's equal, suppose, and that's high, that's low. So this wants to move to here naturally, and because of that, it does not actually need ATP. It's just using the natural forces of osmosis where it moves through a membrane. Now, that's pretty much all diffusion and osmosis is, and that's all you need to know about the differences, really. But the main reason this dot point really has a focus on why is it inadequate in removing dissolved nitrogenous wastes. Now the main thing you actually need to know is that it's too slow. Now the main reason why it's very inadequate is because it's too slow. So there's two things that you need to know. Number one is that it is far too slow for the body, and number two is that it doesn't actually have the ability to filter out. So unlike the kidney, it does not actually have the ability to filter out substances needed by the body. Now, that's the two main reasons why it's an inadequate method of, transporting nitrogenous wastes. Now, removing dissolved nitrogenous waste, because it can't actually filter anything, and it's very, very slow, inefficient, and just it wouldn't work. It wouldn't be fit for the job. Now, moving on to dot point 3.5, just quickly. Distinguish between active and passive transport and relate these to processes occurring in the mammalian kidney. Now, I've got a little table here which just describes all this, and I'm just going to talk you guys through it. So here it is. We've got filtration, and that process is passive. Now, mainly passive because it's trying to move from a high concentration to low concentration. So urea, water, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, glucose, hormones, byproducts of alcohol, and drugs broken down in the liver are all moving from a high concentration to a low concentration, and hence it is passive, which means it's using osmosis, or no ATP is required. Now, this actually explains why, and how. So, if you have a look, there's high pressure in permeability of capillary walls and glomerulus, forces out water ions, small molecules out into the Bowman's capsule. Non-selective for small particles, blood cells / larger proteins remain. So, we all know that in diffusion, the other reason why it's not actually effective is because it doesn't really work that efficiently for larger molecules, and because of that we need the kidney and we need to use this process of filtration. So anyways, moving on to the next process, we've got reabsorption, and that is passive initially and then active to ensure all substances are reabsorbed. I'm not going to read this out, I'm sure you guys can do it in yourselves. It's just basically all the things that are actually involved in reabsorption stage. And how? Useful substances reabsorbed by diffusion until concentrations are even, and then by active transport to ensure all are reabsorbed. So that's basically saying that what's actually going to happen is that substances reabsorbed by diffusion, or done using active ATP, and until concentrations are even, and then by active transport to ensure all reabsorbed. So I'll just say that it's basically the active transport of water and salts, and to make sure that it's all reabsorbed, anything that we actually need. And then we've got water moves back in by osmosis to balance water / salt concentration. So if we have a lot of salt in the reabsorption stage, what's going to happen is that the concentrations from high to low, so the water with less salt is going to move towards the water with more salt, so therefore it's going to move back to maintain the osmotic balance. So moving on, we've got the secretion stage, where it requires active transport, which means it requires ATP. Now, in this stage, it's water, minerals, ions, urea, drugs, and all secreted into the proximal tubule. So we should know what the proximal and distal tubule is. So proximal is the one which is closer to the glomerulus, and the distal is one which is further away. Proximal meaning close, and distal meaning in the distance. So selective reabsorption of water / mineral ions in distal tubule. Ions may move into proximal / distal tubules to regulate pH / solute concentration. Walls of collecting ducts selectively permeable to water. Blood water levels below become permeable and water and move back into the blood. So I'm sorry if I haven't been a little bit clear in this table, but I hope you just read it and understand what I'm trying to say. But mainly, it's just trying to show which processes require what type of transport, if it's active or passive. And the main thing you should take away is that the filtration is passive, which means that it requires no energy. Reabsorption is also passive initially, which means it requires no energy in the beginning, but later on it might require energy for all the other substances to get reabsorbed. And secretion is active transport, which means that it requires energy because it's doing something that requires movement from a low concentration to a higher concentration, which is against the concentration gradient, therefore requires ATP, which is a currency for energy in the body. I hope this helps, and I really hope that I helped you with these 2 dot points, even though I wasn't that clear. It just might be something for you to build your knowledge on. Thank you.